Good evening, Ollie and Emma. It is fab to see you both. Um,
Hello.
hello for our final panel. And it seems a bit wrong doing the children's books last when the kids might all now be in bed. But let's start with some introductions. Ollie, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are, where you are, what you do?
Here we go. Here we go. Yes, happy World Book Day. Thank you so much for having me. This is so fantastic. You've been doing an incredible job, Hannah,
Thank you,
throughout this.
Ollie.
So well done. Your enthusiasm is amazing. But yeah, I'm Olly Pike. I am the founder and director of Pop and Olly, which is an LGBT plus edutainment resource for children, parents, carers, and teachers. And my videos and my books, I've written and illustrated 10 books now. They get used in primary schools across the UK and beyond to help teach about equality and diversity, whilst ultimately helping to combat LGBT plus prejudice before it begins to form. And I also get to do lots of cool things like go into schools and do sessions with the children as well. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Emma, any luck? Still working it out. So whilst Emma's working it out, Ollie, did you just say you wrote them and you illustrated them?
And illustrated them as well.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you illustrated your own books.
Yes. So like I've always loved drawing and just being creative in general. My background is actually in children's theatre and television. And I think that's kind of where I learned about storytelling and how powerful it can be. And it's not always just in a book. Storytelling, it can be on the stage, it can be a video, it can be audio as well. And so I've always just kind of fell in love with that concept, and that led me to start creating my own little stories on YouTube about like little fairy tales about two princes that fell in love, and that video just went absolutely viral. I didn't expect it to. It got hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views, and what surprised me the most is that teachers were getting in touch and they were saying that they were using the video in their classrooms, in their assemblies. And this was back in like 2014. And I hadn't really expected that to happen. I was just creating the video kind of because it's the sort of story I needed as a kid. And that kind of gave me the idea. I was like, well, if so many people are watching this video, I should turn this video into a book. And that's kind of how I became an author, essentially.
I love that. And you've got 10, but tell us about the first one and then the most recent one. So what was your first book called?
Yeah, so the first book was called Prince Henry. So I wrote this over 10 years ago. And this is just a little really, really simple story about a prince who wants to marry his best friend Thomas, but the laws don't allow it. And he has to go on a journey to kind of change the laws of the land. So it's really, really simple, but teachers love using it in their classrooms, and it's still one of our most popular ones. And I think you'll see I've come a long way in the illustration department because this is the latest one. Yeah, this has been 10 years worth of work. So these were really simple, drawing them on my iPad with my finger. And now it's a lot more kind of sophisticated. And this is our latest one. And actually what's been really interesting is me and my team, we've really been listening to teachers' voices and what they want help with in the classroom. And this book is our latest one. It's all about British values. It's about democracy. It's about the rule of law. It's about individual liberty. And it's about children working out what kind of world they want to live in and what kind of world they want to build. And then just one more highlight is this one as well, which is really popular, called What Does LGBT plus mean? And this was born out of our other books, which were about, you know, queer characters, non-binary characters. They were great, but then a lot of the children were having questions like, what does this mean? What does gay mean? What does non-binary mean? So that kind of gave us the idea to come up with this one.
Yeah, love it.
So yeah, it's been a very colourful,
joyful
joyful 10 years.
I love actually, we're going to bring Emma back on and see if we can get Emma's audio.
Yes.
But I love the kind of the journey here over the 10 years of the kind of the conversation being built, but the journey being captured in your illustrations changing as well. So we're going to hold that thought. Emma, can we now hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yay.
Okay,
Hi,
amazing.
Olly.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Do you want to tell everyone who you are, and where you're joining us from?
Yeah, of course. My name's Slade Edmondson, and I am the author of Mixed, Explore and Celebrate Your Mixed Identity, which is a book for 9 to 12-year-old children and their parents. Actually, that's very important. I wrote it full of exercises, practical exercises that can be done with parent and child. And it's a very, very informative text for parents as well as children. And my hope with this book really is that it will give children the agency to explore their mixed heritage and articulate themselves and their identity without feeling pressured to lean into either side, or with the knowledge of how they can express themselves when they do face those kind of challenging moments that I think are so often common for mixed children, where they're forced to kind of pick a side or they're misidentified, and they feel challenged in expressing who they are because of that.
I love it. Are you joining us from Paris tonight, or are you in London?
I'm not. I'm joining you from London tonight. I'm very busy girl in London this week.
And tell them what you do for the day job, because you don't work in education. Do you want to say a little bit about your profile?
Yeah, so I am a co-founder of a conscious marketing consultancy and production house called Good Form, and we work with purpose-driven brands, essentially brands and businesses who are trying to do better for people and planet. And there's a wide range of things I do within that, from producing podcasts to full-scale campaigns to cultural consultancy on films, books, and lots of different media. And yeah, I am also a podcaster, as I know that you know. And that's actually how I came to write my first book, called The Half of It, which is the same subject matter. So it is about exploring the mixed identity, but it's an adult book, so it's very, very different. And yeah, I was commissioned to write both books actually through being discovered through my podcast Mixed Up, which I started in 2020, which explores the mixed experience. And I've been very, very, very lucky to interview many, many different people from different walks of life, from celebrities to ordinary people with incredible stories, historians, psychologists, sociologists, footballers, sports people, and actors and actresses. So a really wide range of people who have graced me with sharing their life experience and their lived experience of being mixed race.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we got your audio working. So Olly, I don't think you can probably remember meeting me, but I met you at the NEU conference in Brighton about 5 years ago, and I think you had some very groovy cat ears on.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's my little character has them in all of my illustrations. I'm actually an elf in this one, and I even put the little cat ears on as well. So it's just, I love it. As I said, coming from theatre, I've always just loved dressing up and playing all the time, which I just think is so important.
The creativity and the joy and the energy that you bring. So you were saying that, really, you've written the books that you needed as a child. So when you were a child in primary school, I'm assuming that you didn't get much representation when it came to the LGBT community.
No, not at all. Like a lot of us grew up under Section 28, so there was definitely no books with same-sex characters or transgender or non-binary. There was barely any books that kind of demonstrated that there was more than one way to be a boy. And I was a very different boy as a child. I actually talk about this when I do my author talks with the children. I show pictures of me as a kid, and it's me dressed as a fairy with a wand, or dancing around in a dress and stuff. And I just say to the kids that I just love playing and dressing up and telling my own stories. But I got a little bit policed by other children when I was at school, and it kind of made me feel really lonely and sad. And this is what I asked the children this. I'm like, how do you think it made me feel? And yeah, it made me stop being myself for a really long time. I kind of pushed the real me down, and it wasn't until I was older and I was like, that's so sad. I wish I could have been my real self when I was growing up. And that's probably the biggest driving factor behind creating all of these books to make sure everyone gets represented. And it started with that first book, which is about two princes, but then it was like, oh, I want to do a story about a princess who's in a wheelchair. But that has nothing to do with the story. She just happens to be in a wheelchair. And I think that's what people love. I think that's what people love about my books, is that the discriminating factor isn't normally what you think it's going to be, and it actually takes people by surprise.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's linking back to the previous panel with the three co-authors talking about centering joy. And actually, like, that's what you're doing. You are bringing joy to the identity that you hold and others hold, and removing the shame and removing the stigma, and centering the positive emotions.
Exactly. And the kids are amazing. The kids pick up on it. I've probably been into about 35 schools in the past year, and spoke to, like, gosh, thousands of kids, and they're so ready to stand up for others and accept differences, and they're really, like, curious, but in like an honest way. And most of the time they're like, how many subscribers have you got on TikTok? It's like they're more interested in that. They're like, yeah, so and so's got 2 dads. Because this is the thing, the vast majority of children already know someone who's LGBT plus or whatever, and it's like that they live in a society that's, you know, a rich tapestry of different people, and it's like that's what school is for. We're preparing them for life in modern Britain.
What is the answer? How many TikTok followers do you have?
Oh gosh, like none. I don't even know how to use TikTok. I'm better on YouTube. We've got like 30,000 subscribers.
Okay, that's good. That's a good start.
Yeah.
And so lead to meeting Olly. Emma and I met at Toppings, a brilliant bookshop in Bath. I think it was back in the autumn now. So Emma and Nicole were there talking about the half of it. And in the Q&A, I asked Emma about colorism and mixed race identities in primary schools. And the answer was, I've got a new book coming out, Hannah. And we've been in touch ever since, Emma, haven't we? So tell us about why you needed this book when you were a little girl in school.
Yeah, I think it starts actually at home. I never actually had these conversations with my parents. The conversation was never brought up, and I didn't know how to bring it up. And so I felt like I was just kind of moving through it alone, to be honest. And then when I started my podcast, I realized that everybody I spoke to had the same experience. And then parents started reaching out, and people and actually adults, you know, quite a lot of 50-year-olds who, you know, would reach out and say, this is the book that we needed growing up, and, you know, you must write a children's book so that, you know, these conversations can start in the home, because it is important to have the conversations at home, so that when you go to school and you're challenged or you're misidentified as a child, and, you know, people challenge you around your understanding of your identity and your heritage, you are prepared to push back and assert yourself and express yourself as you know yourself to be. And so yeah, I think that's really where this book came from. People asked for it, so I wrote it.
No, I love that. And I want to just tease that out of you both about, like, the target audience you're writing for. So Olly, you've written 10 children's books. Have you thought about, or have you been approached about writing books for adults? I'm just curious.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, you should write for teenagers, but I'm like, no, I like what I like. I just know that I love writing for primary age children. It brings me so much joy, and there's so many amazing authors out there writing for teenagers, that I'm like, no, I'm just gonna stay in my lane, but like be diverse in my own lane.
No, I love that. Stay in your lane and broaden it out rather than diversifying the age groups. That's an interesting just choice there. Emma, you've written a book for adults, and now you've written a book for children. Like, similar processes, different processes. I'm just curious how the two compared.
Very different. Very, very different. I mean, how long have you got? I feel like writing the adult book was, for me anyway, so much more intense. The adult book had a lot more input from people, in the sense that obviously we'd spoken to a lot of people on the podcast, but also reached out to people to cover specific topics. And with the children's book, it was less so. Every chapter starts with a really beautiful letter from somebody I've asked to write about their experience, but it then hinges off of the letter, and it really allowed me to kind of dig into the themes that came out of these letters, but then sort of really move into that, as you were saying, Olly, that world of the child and what that would mean to them at this time, and, you know, thinking about the challenges that they might be facing in the here and now. And to be honest with you, I think similar to you, I enjoyed that more. I enjoyed, you know, being able to tease silly things out of it and be a bit more jovial, and, you know, come up with ways to express things, like the question burger, which I use to explain what sort of a loaded question is. And yeah, I found it really fun to be able to find these kind of sweet ways of expressing things and breaking them down. But it is also very honest. And I think that's quite important, and does tackle quite a lot of challenging themes. So in that respect, it's similar to the adult book.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm going to ask you both to finish off then by giving some tips. We've asked tonight about like words of wisdom and tips, but Olly, if there's people listening either now or on the recording later, like, how do you get started with a concept for a children's book? What would be your tip for them?
Actually, a lot of kids ask me this when I go in, so I normally just say to them, just if you get an idea, write notes down. You never know where you're going to be. I also kind of say that just try it, and also don't cling on to the idea of a book so much. Like, just tell a story. You can tell it through writing, you can tell it through illustrations, through comics, you can tell it on a podcast, you can tell it on the stage. Like, I think the most important thing is the actual storytelling.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to this question. Who publishes your books? Do you publish them through your business?
So I've done a bit of a mixture. We've published most of them, and then I had one published through a publisher, but I did a bit of a Taylor Swift, and I actually got the rights back so that we could publish it.
Right. Your company owns the rights, which means you've got a bit more control perhaps as well.
Yeah, so I've had both experiences, and I much prefer publishing it ourselves, even though it's a lot more work.
Yeah, a lot more work. Thank you. Emma, do you mean any tips on the children piece in particular to the listeners? Lots of educators probably have a children's book inside them. What's the tip for getting started?
I think there's two things. So I am a creative at heart, so I always come up with a vehicle pretty early on, and I knew that as a child I loved pen paling. So I really wanted to get this letter writing concept into my book, and I thought it would be a wonderful way of communicating, because the other thing, which links in quite nicely, is that I think it's really important to understand what people need to know about, what children need to know about. And because I have the podcast, I'm really in touch with that anyway. But again, the letter writing aspect enabled me to gather that information in a really fun way, because obviously what I do is nonfiction, so it's slightly different, but
No, I love that. And I think we've heard that a lot tonight about like bringing other voices in, and whether it's listening to children in the classroom or getting people to write letters and contributing. I think that collective voice is really powerful as well. Right, I have run out of time, so I do need to wrap up. Thank you both for the work you're both doing. Feel free to hold your books up again, or I'm not sure you've got hands to hold all 10. Emma, fantastic. And it's just been lovely tonight to talk to everybody across the 5 panels. And I hope the audience are feeling inspired to go and buy some books, read some books, but also potentially write some books. And when I send the recording out to everybody, we've got some other things to invite you to. So, for example, Emma is doing a webinar with us in a few weeks' time to really think about mixed race identities and how that shows up within the classroom, within schools. So there'll be other ways to come and join the conversation and to follow up. And we'll also put all the links to all the books so you can go and get them. So thank you, Olly and Emma. Thank you, everyone else who's joined us tonight. Happy World Book Day. Go and enjoy what's left of your evening.
Thanks for having me.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.